What is up, people of YouTube? You are joining us over here on Twitch. I have just finished Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water. For me, it's Zero Nure Garasu no Miko, which meant that the in-game text was in Japanese, the voices were in English. But anyway, you can see that the credits are rolling. You're going to hear the music as well. So, I basically want to go through my thoughts on the game, my thoughts about who should play the game, my thoughts about how to approach playing the game. So, just to preface my thoughts on the game, I think that when you go into a game, streaming it, you're gonna end up engaging with the game in a very different way than how someone would engage with the game if they were just playing by themselves. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I want to talk about what my expectations were and how I wanted to approach the game in the first place, because that, I think, makes a huge difference. Going into this game, I wanted to mostly have a gameplay and, you know, atmosphere heavy experience. I was just looking more so for the spooky times of Halloween. And I think that that negatively affected how I experienced the beginning of the game. I think that having a more story and theme focused approach to playing this game makes it much better. So let's talk about those different aspects. I'll start with the bad stuff. I think that the gameplay is probably its weakest part. I mean, so parts of it are obviously made to feel like a horror game. You know, you got Resident Evil, they use tank controls. This game, same deal, they're using tank controls so that your character, you know, doesn't feel powerful, and by doing that, they make the game feel scarier because you're vulnerable. But when you make a game that way, you can still make it so that moving around feels okay, so that, you know, the player is still having fun. For me, it took about half of the game to get used to the movement. And admittedly, there was a lot I was learning, you know, as I was playing, and it's harder to learn as you stream. But I don't think that they nailed the movement of a character that you know, uses tank controls. With Resident Evil, for example, the movement doesn't feel great, but it's manageable much earlier in the game. Yeah, if you're playing Resident Evil, you do have the tank controls, but that's sort of how bad it gets. The camera angles for some of the Resident Evil games do sort of make it a little worse, but I mean, Fatal Frame, this game, Fatal Frame, Maiden of Black Water, it's not improving upon camera angles. You can control the camera yourself, but it moves so slow, and you're put into a lot of situations where the area is so narrow that sometimes you're fighting the camera as well as the ghost. Something about the movement in Fatal Frame feels a little bit more janky. It's like you're a tank covered in molasses driving through a swamp.
My swamp!
Which is a lot worse than just being a tank. And so there's a lot of fighting with the controls and learning the controls and learning the camera movement. before you can actually start enjoying the game. For me, I started enjoying the game about halfway through, which if I wasn't streaming the game, I might have stopped playing before that point. And that's not good, right? You want to engage your player before they get to a point where they decide, I'm no longer going to play. So, what happened actually at the halfway point? I had an idea of the movement. I understood dodging much more than I did before that. I understood the invincibility frames of dodging. I understood where I should place myself in order to not, dodge into an enemy. I understood a lot more about the combat mechanics. I understood I can upgrade my camera, and I understood how to get the best shots when I should use my ability shots. And that made it so that the depth of the combat came through and I could enjoy it, The depth of the combat ended up being, do I know where to place myself, the angle of the shot to take, the timing of the shot to take, how do I get a fatal frame, how do I get the most damage in one shot, how do I make sure I'm not wasting my best film. That, I think, is decent gameplay. It's a little better than serviceable. It's decent gameplay, but if you're someone who isn't able to engage with those systems, I think the gameplay is just serviceable after you get used to the movement, which is a bit unfortunate because I think the strongest aspects of this game end up being overshadowed by the fact that the player might not be having fun. Anyway, so let's put that aside. Let's talk about what works well in this game, because I think there is a lot, and it's kind of a shame that it somewhat gets overshadowed by the fact that you might end up not having fun until about halfway through the game. I think the concept that they have is very good. I think it's very good in terms of story. I think it's very good in terms of gameplay. So the concept, right, is you use a camera and you make yourself vulnerable in order to fight, right? In order to battle these ghosts, you have to get close, you have to look into the camera, and what happens when you look into a camera? I mean, just imagine it in real life. You close one of your eyes, and you get rid of, this wide perspective that you normally have. You're tunneled in. So you make yourself vulnerable. That's very, very good for, a horror game. They take it farther than that. They make even the simplest things feel scary. You open a door, a shadow shows up of your hand opening the door. You go to pick up an item, and sometimes a ghost hand pops out and grabs you. You use your ability to look at a shadow that shows you which way to go, and they turn up the intensity of the music because you're focused on that. And if they make the music scarier when you're doing that, you get a little bit more paranoid. When you're locked onto a ghost, sure, you don't have to put as much effort into aiming, but they make it sound like there are more ghosts all around you. So the sound design, the design of the atmosphere is very, very good. And if you are playing for that sort of thing, you want a scary game to play through, and you want to engage with the environment, and you want to engage with that sort of thing, this can be a very fun game for you, as long as you can get to the point where the gameplay feels serviceable for you, and it takes a little bit of time to get to that point. So overall, as a horror game, they have a lot that they're working with that's very, very good, and it feels somewhat held back by the gameplay aspect of it. And what do people say? Gameplay is king, right? If you're playing a game and you're not having fun, you're not going to engage with the other parts of the game. That's kind of an issue. And as I've already said, that's really, really unfortunate, because if you start to look into this game more on a thematic level, I think it's really, really good. It gets into some very dark themes that I don't think everyone would be able to engage with, but one thing, if you don't know, that a lot of people know of in Japan is there are areas in Japan, mountains or forests, that people know of as like the place people go to attempt suicide. And so the developers of this game use that concept as sort of a setting for the game, and it's something that at least Japanese players can immediately understand. I guess before I keep talking about the theme, I'll answer this question here. What did you think of the costumes wet mechanic? I thought that took away a lot from it being a serious game. Yeah, this is something that a lot of developers sort of do where they end up shooting themselves in the foot because they're trying to have the best of both worlds. I don't want to say it's mostly Japanese developers, but it feels a little more egregious when the characters are these anime girls that always look really young. So I think it's a little bit more egregious in that sense, but yeah, they're trying to have the best of both worlds here, right? They want a game that has a scary setting, has deeper themes, has, you know, scary combat and gameplay, and then they add, hey, if your character gets wet, you can kind of see through their shirt. Hey, look at this camera angle. Isn't this really provocative? Like, I think you don't need that. In their mind, they think if we add this, more people will buy it. I don't know what the data looks like, but I wish that that stuff wasn't there. So back to the themes that they are clearly getting at in this game. I think if you plan to engage with this game on a thematic level, as opposed to like just wanting to play a fun game, I think you get more out of it. The ghosts are a good device, I think, right? Ghosts haunt people. They don't use the ghosts to attack people in like the cutscenes or attack the other characters that you're not playing. They use the ghosts, they haunt those characters, and then those characters do the dangerous actions themselves, right? And so it feels like on a thematic level that speaks more to the emotions, the thoughts, the all of the dark feelings that the characters are having, because they're carrying out the actions on their own. Obviously, on a story level, on a plot level, they're not carrying out the actions on their own, but if you try to look past it in terms of its themes, it feels like all of these characters who are being possessed, all of these characters that are carrying out these actions, they're all going through very troubling emotions, very hard times, and the ghosts are just a device to emphasize that or drive them to the actions that follow those emotions. And so you have people who are lonely because they've lost their family, or they've lost their husband, or, you know, they're alone in terms of like a romantic sense. I think they do a good job of having the entire story encompass those sort of themes, and even with the motifs of like people are put into boxes, it feels sort of like the characters are trapped, right? It's a feeling of being trapped. There's a lot of stuff like that. I don't want to get too much into it because that feels like it gets into more spoilery territory, and I don't want to talk too much about spoilers, but I do think that they have something very good that they're working with on that level, and they sort of execute okay on a lot of it. But again, if as a player you're not having fun, you'll have a hard time engaging with those concepts, engaging with those themes. It's just really a shame that it doesn't feel very good to play the game. Moving around feels bad. A lot of the battles feel long. I understand you can shorten it by powering up your camera and using the right film and all of that. But if the actual combat doesn't already feel fun, the longer the battle is, the less you have fun, and the more it feels like a chore. So even if you shorten that a little bit, it's still gonna feel like a chore. So I sort of look forward to a day where they're able to create a Fatal Frame game that does have those themes, that does have a strong concept that they're working with, that does have a story that you can engage with. Obviously, as I was streaming, I wasn't engaging with the story as much as I would have if I was playing with my as if I was playing by myself. Because, you know, I'm not gonna sit here on stream and read the millions of notes that they've left around. But if I was playing by myself, I might have read those, and I might have been more engaged with the story. So they have a lot of good that they're working with, but it's just held back by what I consider and what a lot of people will consider the most important part, the gameplay. What can you do to overcome bad gameplay in a video game? There's not a lot that you can do. So in the end, and what I would like to do when I'm talking about any game is talk about who I think should play the game and who I think should not play the game. And that might be obvious from what I've already said, but I think that if you are looking to engage with this game mostly on a gameplay level, you think it might be fun to battle ghosts and take the right picture and that sort of thing, I would hesitate to recommend this game to you, because I don't think that those parts of the game are that fun. You would be in the same position that I was in. I wanted to go into the game mostly engaging with the gameplay stuff, but the gameplay stuff is at best decent if you get to that point of making it decent for yourself. If you're someone who wants the story to be told more in the cutscenes, more in voice acting, you don't want to have to read note after note after journal after journal, this also might not be the game you want to play, because there's a lot that you're going to miss if you do not read those notes. You're not going to be engaging with the story unless you spend a lot of time reading. Now that's not a good or a bad thing, it just depends on how you approach a game. On the other hand, if you are someone who is looking to engage with a story that might have deeper themes to explore, and you can feel comfortable exploring those themes and those concepts while playing as these girls that are slightly sexualized because of the whole wet mechanic and the weird camera angles, then it can be a game that you enjoy if you are okay with just serviceable gameplay. If you're not okay with just serviceable gameplay, I don't think you'll be able to engage with the better parts of the game. If you are someone who works in video games and you're looking to learn more about, you know, horror games and interesting mechanics and creating atmosphere, or you're just someone who studies games in that sort of way, then I do think this game is worth playing through. It's not that long. I think I only played it for around 12 or 13 hours or so. You would probably end up engaging with it a little bit more by reading the notes and whatnot. But it's not an extremely long experience, while also being an experience that can teach you a little bit about how to create a world around a specific theme. And I think that's where the game shines the most. So those are gonna be my thoughts on Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water. Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? How do you think I could have gone about my playthrough to make my experience better? If you have any other thoughts at all, leave them in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to read your impressions of the game, whether or not you had a similar or a different experience, how you decided to approach the game. Because I think how you approach the game, what to expect, does make a huge difference. So, let me know in the comments. If you would like to actually see the progression of my thoughts, I will also be uploading the Let's Play from my Twitch channel onto YouTube. If you would like to actually be a part of the playthrough, be in chat, engage with me and the rest of chat while we're actually playing, I would love to have you over on Twitch. You can find me at twitch.tv/BrooklynB_JP. I am currently playing Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy. I look forward to playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 as well on stream. So if you're looking forward to any of those games and you want to, chat about those games as I'm playing through them, I'd love to have you. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I will mainly be uploading Let's Plays and reviews, so, make sure the notifications are on so that you will be updated whenever I upload those. And lastly, if you want to be updated whenever I go live or whenever I upload a video, you can follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/BrooklynB_JP, and you will always be updated. So, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.